Think back honestly to those pivotal moments in your life where you distinctly felt you were standing right on the edge of something truly great. It could have manifested as a promising job opportunity, the exciting launch of a new personal project, or perhaps even the deepening of a potentially meaningful relationship. You could clearly see the potential unfolding before you. You knew, on some intuitive level, that success or fulfillment was tantalizingly within reach. But then somehow, almost inexplicably, something seemed to stop you dead in your tracks. That invisible yet incredibly potent force, that sudden wave of hesitation, that palpable internal resistance that arises seemingly out of nowhere, preventing you from taking the crucial next step. That is precisely what we commonly label self-sabotage. It often feels as if you are standing directly in front of a door that clearly leads towards everything you consciously believe you have ever wanted, yet your hand inexplicably freezes on the handle, unable or unwilling to turn the knob and walk through. Why does this happen? Self-sabotage is a term we frequently toss around casually when we sense we are somehow holding ourselves back from achieving our goals or potential. But precious few of us possess a truly deep understanding of why it happens so persistently, so powerfully. It's deceptively easy to assume it's merely a straightforward matter of lacking discipline or sufficient willpower. But the psychological reality, as explored profoundly by Carl Jung, is far more intricate, far more complex. According to Carl Jung, the pioneering figure in analytical psychology, self-sabotage is almost invariably deeply rooted within our vast unconscious mind. That hidden, often inaccessible realm containing submerged thoughts, unacknowledged emotions, forgotten memories, and deeply ingrained desires that we are often completely unaware of consciously, but which nonetheless exert a powerful influence, shaping much of our daily behavior and choices from beneath the surface. The unconscious encompasses everything within our psyche that we are not consciously aware of at any given moment. It represents the vast, often hidden majority of our psychological landscape, functioning much like the submerged base of an iceberg. According to Jung, much of what truly drives our behavior, our motivations, our fears, our attractions, our compulsions, actually stems directly from this unconscious mind, even though we may remain entirely oblivious to its powerful influence. Self-sabotage frequently occurs when there exists a fundamental conflict between our conscious goals and aspirations, what we think we want, and our hidden unconscious fears or deeply buried unresolved issues. What part of us subconsciously resists or dreads? For example, you might consciously desire with all your being to succeed spectacularly in your chosen career. But deep down, hidden within your unconscious, there may lurk a powerful, perhaps unacknowledged fear of failure, or paradoxically, even a subconscious fear of success itself. Perhaps fearing the responsibility, visibility, or potential envy it might bring, often rooted in negative past experiences or limiting beliefs absorbed early in life. In Jungian terminology, these hidden, often troublesome fears, desires, and unresolved issues are frequently associated with what he famously termed the shadow. The shadow represents the often denied, darker, hidden aspects of our personality. It encompasses the parts of ourselves we instinctively refuse to acknowledge, often because we deem them unacceptable, undesirable, or threatening to our carefully constructed, conscious self-image, our persona. The shadow serves as a repository for everything we have actively repressed, consciously rejected, or simply disowned within ourselves throughout our lives. This can include a vast range of psychological material, from commonly perceived negative traits like fear, anger, envy, and greed, to deeper psychological wounds, unresolved traumas, unmet needs, and even paradoxically positive potentials that we were perhaps taught were unacceptable early in life. The key point here is that the shadow, according to Jung, is not inherently evil or bad. It is simply comprised of the essential parts of ourselves that we do not want to consciously face or integrate. But here is precisely where it gets psychologically interesting and relevant to self-sabotage. The more intensely we try to ignore or actively repress these disowned aspects of ourselves, pushing them further down into the unconscious, the more power they paradoxically seem to gain over us. Jung powerfully argued that what we consciously resist unconsciously persists and often intensifies when we forcefully push parts of ourselves into the dark recesses of the unconscious. They don't simply disappear. Instead, they continue to exert a powerful influence on our behavior, from the shadows often manifesting in indirect, distorted, and frequently self-destructive ways that directly undermine our conscious intentions and goals. Have you ever found yourself inexplicably repeating the same frustrating patterns in your life, perhaps in relationships, career choices, or health habits, even when you consciously know those patterns are ultimately not serving you well? These recurring patterns are rarely random coincidences. They are often potent signals indicating that something deeper is fundamentally at play within your psyche, a significant conflict simmering between your conscious desires and the powerful, often hidden, unconscious forces operating within you. According to Jung's framework, self-sabotage is frequently the direct result of unresolved psychological conflicts simmering deep within the psyche. Fundamental conflicts existing between what we consciously desire or aspire towards and what our often hidden unconscious believes is actually possible, safe, permissible, or acceptable for us, based largely on past experiences and internalized beliefs. Throughout the course of our lives, particularly during our formative years, we have all inevitably experienced moments of pain, instances of perceived rejection, encounters with undeniable failure. These experiences, especially when emotionally charged or occurring during vulnerable developmental stages, leave significant emotional imprints upon our developing psyche. We learn either consciously or far more often unconsciously to instinctively avoid situations or behaviors that we associate with the potential recurrence of similar pain in the future. For example, if as a child you were consistently or harshly criticized whenever you attempted something new or dared to express yourself authentically, you might unconsciously grow up harboring a deep-seated, paralyzing fear of failure. And as a direct result of this hidden fear, you might find yourself habitually avoiding taking necessary risks, shying away from challenges, or playing it perpetually safe in your adult life, thereby limiting your potential. Over time, these unconscious fears and associated limiting beliefs often become so deeply ingrained, so habitually reinforced, that we come to accept them as immutable parts of who we fundamentally are. I'm just not a risk taker. I'm simply not good enough. Success just isn't meant for people like me. This is precisely why self-sabotage can feel so incredibly frustrating and perplexing. It often feels like you are literally at war with yourself, consciously wanting desperately to move forward, achieve a goal, make a change, yet simultaneously feeling inexplicably held back by powerful invisible forces operating just beneath the surface of your awareness. Jung's extensive work brilliantly sheds light on this complex internal struggle. He believed that these pervasive fears and deeply ingrained limiting beliefs are often fundamentally rooted in what he termed psychological complexes. Complexes, in Jungian theory, represent emotionally charged clusters of interconnected memories, thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that reside largely within the unconscious mind. A complex typically forms when we experience a situation that triggers strong emotions, but for various reasons we aren't able to fully process or consciously resolve those emotions at the time. For instance, imagine someone grappling with a deeply ingrained failure complex. Perhaps they grew up in an environment where they were constantly compared to seemingly more successful siblings or peers, or perhaps they were persistently told that they simply weren't good enough. Over time, this accumulation of negative experiences likely created a powerful unconscious complex centered around the intense fear of failure. Consequently, Even though they might consciously want to succeed in their adult life, their unconscious mind remains powerfully operating from the deeply embedded belief that failure is somehow inevitable, or perhaps even that achieving success will only ultimately lead to greater disappointment or judgment. The complex functions like a psychological knot within the psyche, and until that intricate knot is consciously identified, patiently untangled, and its energy integrated, it will likely continue to influence behavior in predictable, often detrimental ways that inevitably perpetuate self-sabotage. Jung firmly believed that the key to overcoming the limiting power of these unconscious complexes lies fundamentally in cultivating awareness. By consciously bringing the complex into the light of consciousness, by understanding its origins, its triggers, its characteristic patterns, we can begin to understand precisely how it affects us and consequently begin to loosen its powerful grip. Start simply by paying closer, more mindful attention to your intense emotional reactions. Complexes are often powerfully triggered by specific external situations or interactions with particular people that somehow remind us of those unresolved past experiences where the complex originated. For example, if you consistently find yourself feeling unusually anxious, intensely defensive, or disproportionately angry in certain specific types of situations, e.g., receiving criticism, facing authority figures, experiencing intimacy, that heightened emotional response serves as a valuable clue that an underlying unconscious complex might be actively at play. Jung profoundly believed that the more we consciously become aware of our complexes and the specific emotions they habitually trigger within us, the less unconscious power they ultimately possess over us. As he succinctly put it, we cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. By consciously acknowledging and compassionately accepting the very parts of ourselves, the fears, the wounds, the insecurities that we have perhaps spent a lifetime avoiding or condemning, we can finally begin the profound process of integration, the journey towards becoming whole. One incredibly powerful tool Jung himself frequently recommended was the practice of active imagination. This represents a unique technique where we consciously choose to engage directly with the unconscious mind, its symbols, its figures, its narratives, often through intentional dialogue, vivid imagery, or various forms of creative expression. In active imagination, we consciously allow the unconscious to speak to us, whether through spontaneous images arising in dreams, waking visions, intuitive flashes, or seemingly random thoughts. Another crucial technique Jung consistently emphasized was meticulous dream analysis. He firmly believed that dreams serve as a primary window into the unconscious, offering invaluable symbolic clues about our deepest inner conflicts, unresolved issues, and hidden desires. By consciously paying attention to our dreams, perhaps keeping a dream journal, and patiently reflecting on their symbolic meaning, we can gain significantly deeper understanding of the specific unconscious forces that may be actively driving our behavior, including our patterns of self-sabotage. Of course, this profound inner process requires significant patience and unwavering self-compassion. Consciously confronting the unconscious, facing long-buried fears and wounds is not always comfortable, and progress is rarely linear, but always remember this fundamental truth. Self-sabotage is not an inherent permanent state of being. It is simply a reflection of unresolved inner conflict. And once that underlying conflict is courageously brought into the light of conscious awareness, we inherently possess the power to finally change it. Conscious action is absolutely crucial to definitively break the persistent cycle of self-sabotage. You ultimately need to take concrete, tangible steps in the external world to actively challenge the limiting patterns you have uncovered within yourself. This might initially mean setting small, achievable goals that gently yet consistently push you just outside your current comfort zone. Or it might involve consciously choosing to confront a specific long-held fear head-on, perhaps through gradual exposure or seeking support. One particularly powerful strategy for actively overcoming self-sabotage is to consciously create new supportive habits that directly align with your desired goals and values. Habits represent the fundamental building blocks of our daily behavior, and by consciously, intentionally creating habits that actively support your conscious intentions, you can effectively begin to rewire your brain's neural pathways and definitively break free from old destructive patterns. It is also essential to cultivate unwavering self-compassion throughout this entire challenging yet rewarding process. Overcoming deeply ingrained patterns of self-sabotage is not about harshly punishing yourself for your inevitable mistakes or perceived failures along the way. It is fundamentally about understanding why those self-sabotaging behaviors likely exist in the first place, often as outdated protective mechanisms, and consciously choosing to treat yourself with kindness, patience, and understanding as you diligently work through them. As we conclude this exploration into Carl Jung's profound ideas on effectively overcoming self-sabotage, we must turn our conscious attention towards the broader picture, Jung's pivotal concept of individuation. Individuation represents far more than just fixing a specific problem like self-sabotage. It embodies the ultimate goal of psychological development as envisioned by Jung. It describes the lifelong process by which an individual becomes psychologically whole, consciously integrating both the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self, so that they are no longer perpetually fragmented, internally conflicted, or fundamentally at odds with themselves. Self-sabotage, viewed through this comprehensive Jungian lens, serves fundamentally as a clear sign of inner division. It indicates that there exist significant conflicting desires, underlying fears, and limiting beliefs operating within you, often beneath the surface of conscious awareness. And these internal conflicts inevitably manifest externally as behaviors that consistently undermine your progress, happiness, and potential. But crucially, the path of individuation offers a profound pathway towards resolution. It represents the conscious journey of reconciling these internal conflicts, courageously embracing all parts of yourself, even perhaps especially the parts you have previously rejected, repressed, or felt ashamed of, and progressively moving toward a state of integrated wholeness, authenticity, and inner alignment. One of the most powerful principles Jung emphasized is the psychological capacity required to consciously hold the tension of opposites. This refers to the crucial ability to hold two seemingly contradictory truths, impulses, or feelings simultaneously within your awareness, without immediately rushing to resolve the inherent tension between them, without prematurely choosing one side and rejecting the other, rather than forcing yourself to simply choose one side or the other, often leading to internal conflict or repression. Jung encouraged individuals to consciously hold the tension between these opposing forces, allowing a third, deeper, more integrated resolution to eventually emerge organically from the unconscious. Jung also consistently stressed the fundamental importance of establishing a conscious connection to something perceived as greater than the individual ego, something transcendent. He often referred to this ultimate center of psychological wholeness as the self, with a capital S. The self, within the framework of Jungian psychology, represents the totality of the psyche, encompassing both conscious and unconscious realms. It functions as the innate central organizing principle of your being, the ultimate source of your inner wisdom, guidance, and authentic purpose. The journey towards definitively overcoming self-sabotage is rarely a linear one. It is fundamentally a process, often involving setbacks, requiring ongoing self-awareness, unwavering courage, and a deep commitment to continued personal growth. but it is also undeniably a profoundly rewarding journey. As you progressively become more conscious of your own intricate inner world, and as you consciously begin to integrate the very parts of yourself that you have perhaps spent a lifetime avoiding or rejecting, you will inevitably find that you no longer need unconsciously to sabotage your own efforts. Instead, you will find yourself increasingly able to move through life with significantly greater clarity, confidence, and profound authenticity. In conclusion, Carl Jung's invaluable insights offer an incredibly powerful framework, not just for understanding, but ultimately for overcoming the pervasive human tendency towards self-sabotage. By courageously exploring the unconscious mind, consciously integrating the shadow, and wholeheartedly embracing the lifelong process of individuation, you possess the inherent potential to break free from the limiting patterns that have perhaps held you back for far too long. So, as you finish reading, I sincerely invite you to reflect deeply on your own personal journey. Where are you currently holding yourself back? And what parts of yourself, what fears, what wounds, what potentials have you perhaps been avoiding facing directly? What might it truly look like for you to face those fears courageously and begin moving forward with greater self-awareness? The answers ultimately lie within you, patiently waiting to be uncovered. And as you continue courageously to explore your own inner world, always remember, the journey towards psychological wholeness is not about achieving some unattainable state of perfection, but rather about courageously embracing all that you are and simultaneously all that you possess. The inherent potential to become the profound power to overcome self-sabotage and finally live a more authentic, fulfilling life resides firmly within your reach. All it truly takes is the unwavering willingness to look within, consciously confront your shadows, and bravely trust in the inherent process of growth and transformation.